Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Feeling ready to kick your sales into high gear? We're here to help. Check out our sales coaching and consulting services at predictablerevenue.com. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Gilman. He's the National Sales Director at Carvertise, and we're going to talk about habits. Sales excellence is about developing, at least in my opinion, is about developing a collection of habits that serve us. They serve our prospects and, most importantly, our commission checks. So today, we're going to dive into a senior director's habits that he's developed over his 20-year sales career as a quota-carrying salesperson. I wrote a different word, but I'm going to go with salesperson. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here again and chat. It's a topic I love. And I've been doing this a while and I've crafted out a pretty good structure to my week and my day, and thrilled to share it with everyone.
Right on. We're thrilled to have you back on. I should mention, and I don't remember the exact episode because I think I was either checked out or Sarah was running the show at the time. But you were on about 100 and something episodes ago, 150 episodes ago.
About 3-4 years ago. Yeah, it was on cold calling.
Mm-hmm. Right on. So we're excited to have you back. This is part of our kind of going back and grabbing some of our favorite guests from the earlier days of the podcast. So welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Well, let's do it. I'm excited for this.
I'm curious, when did you first realize the importance of habits as it relates to sales?
I generally think you need to go back outside of just looking at sales. Like, I think life is a series of habits. I mean, I tell my kids now, you do habits every day, you get a little bit better every day. You look back at the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years, you're going to be substantially better. So, regardless of what you're doing, for a specific sales, I would tell you it was probably about 15 years ago, I started seeing less talented sales reps, but more structured sales reps passing me by. And I was like, well, what are they doing differently? And I just started looking at what our number one and number two and number three sales executives were doing at the company I was at the time. And the clear takeaway to me was they're very diligent and very structured with their time. And I said, okay, that worked. And like that, it took off and I ran.
It's funny as you say that. I've got a friend who I've played guitar since I was 6. Now I'm good enough. I'm pretty good. But my friend Hudson, he plays every day, but he didn't start playing guitar till he was like 12 or 15 or something. And so when it comes to like certain things, I can make a guitar sound better sometimes. But on average, if we're playing together, Hudson's better because he practices and plays every day. And it seems sort of like he's got a much better habit. You had the higher caliber kind of talent, but these other people with better habits were passing you by.
Correct. And then, I think every sales executive, if you're committed to being in sales for the long haul, you reassess annually, quarterly, however you go about it, job to job, whatever. And you start saying, how can I get better? What can I do? I don't care if you're playing professional baseball. I don't care if you're a professional writer, whatever it is. You're constantly reassessing where you're at, how can you get better, how can you improve, how can you make life easier, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think the best thing about the habits is they don't require willpower after a certain time. It is just something to do. Every time I'm in a meeting and it's with a prospect and they didn't tell me to go kick sand, I'd book a next call.
Yeah.
Even if they're annoyed about it, I'll try 3 or 4 times. And if they're like, no, I'm like, cool. Then a no's a no. I know I'm going to put this one in the bin.
I always say, you can love me, you can hate me, just don't be indifferent.
Totally. I want to get into some of your most powerful habits, but maybe we could talk a little bit about how you go about adding a new habit.
Well, I don't really truthfully, I don't think of it as adding a habit. I look at it as adding something that's going to better my life, my family's life, or my work life. Because I kind of break those down into 3 separate things. Whatever it may be, whether it's I'm realizing that I'm not consistent with working out in the morning. 2 years ago, I decided to just pencil that in Monday through Friday, whether that's a walk, a run, weightlifting, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I started scheduling that. There's not like really a moment here where the world awakens in my mind and I say, hey, I need to schedule this moving on. I wanted to get more intentional with my LinkedIn outreach and my LinkedIn really posting. So I scheduled it on a once a week, hourly basis. I schedule it all for the next week and I'm good to go. And I block it out and just do it at that point. I kind of look at the things that are important and where I think I can do better at. And I say, where can I fit this into my week? Does something need to go? Does something need to change? And honestly, I mean, I know you want to get into some of it later, but some of the things I've seen, I move around throughout the course of the year and over multiple years where I have found I'm more creative and a better writer in the morning. So I used to do my LinkedIn outreach in the afternoon. I used to do more of my prospect in the afternoon, but I have seen that I do a better job doing that in the morning. So I moved it to there.
So it's not just kind of scheduling, it's finding the ideal time to have that scheduled in.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm writing a book right now and I find I've got 2 good windows. And the first one is sort of the morning to noon, where like that's a really strong window for me. And then I find I've got an afternoon or an evening window, and my evening window doesn't get used that much anymore because kids and family and all that. But I used to get most of my work done 7 to 11, and I would just sit down. I've had dinner. I'm like, cool. Now I can focus. Nobody's going to bug me, and I could churn through 3-4 hours. That's harder to do, so I've had to kind of try and reschedule those around. But I could totally appreciate the value of trying to find the optimal time for a particular habit.
Yeah, I mean and some of mine's seasonal as well. Like I really enjoy baseball. I like coaching my 2 boys in baseball. That matters to me as a human, not as anything to do with my job. So I agree with you. I typically worked well from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. But I know during baseball season, which is really end of March through mid-June, there's a lot of nights each week I'm not going to be available to start working until 9 o'clock at night because by the time I get home and do late dinner and the whole 9 yards. So you plan for that accordingly. You set your priorities and you schedule around where you possibly can. By no means am I robotic and saying, all right, it's 5:01, I need to go do this now. Everything's still fluid, but if you go in with some 90-80% of a structure to your day and your week, you're going to be significantly better off.
Before we talk about some of the habits, can we touch on baseball? Because you said something interesting in the pre-interview that, you know, along the lines of you take your job seriously, but your job as being dad is most important. So how does that impact your schedule and some of the habits that you formed?
I would never trade my income potential or my career for being a dad. I mean, I have 5 kids. I have a wonderful wife. I have blessed with, I know 5 kids is, trust me, like, it was not according to plan, but we got there. So,
fair enough.
I would never trade any amount of income potential for the ability to be present in their life. Like, I mean, with young ones out, you know, like, it goes by so fast. And like, I'm already starting to see with my 9-year-old, like, I'm not the most important person in his life anymore. He's got friends, he's got relationships, he's got baseball friends. And like, as they get older, you start becoming less important in their lives. So I want to take advantage of every possible moment I can there. So, for example, my kids' school just released the 2024-2025 calendar, which doesn't start until Labor Day in the U.S. 2024, 4 months from now. I have already a full academic calendar loaded into my schedule for the next year. So I now know when the Christmas play is. I know when their first day of school is. I know when they get off for Christmas break. I can be very intentional about short or long-term planning to focus around them. I put all of my kids' athletic, whatever schedules they have, I put it in my calendar. A lot of times I'm not able to get to everything, but at least I know this is going on. I can ask them about it. I can be involved in it. If I need to be, I can plan around it whenever I can.
I love there's a book I read a long time ago. I think it was called The Now Habit. And it talked about the unschedule, which is you take the most important things in your personal life and you put those in your schedule first, and then you fill in the rest of your professional goals around that. And it seemed the opposite to what I was expecting. I think that's why they called it the unschedule.
Yeah.
Because I think there's the comment there is if your subconscious feels like you're taking care of your top priorities personally, then you have the time to relax into your top priorities professionally.
Yeah, I mean, and by doing it that way, I was unfamiliar with that book, but that's exactly what I do. I look at it this way. I am able to feel comfortable while planning a meeting or taking a work trip or whatever pops up work-wise, because I have everything else outside of work scheduled and planned ahead of time. So I know that if my marketing director says, hey, we need you at this trade show June 13th, I can look in and make a real good decision if I am able to attend this or not based off of what else is going on in my life.
I love the level of organization. It reduces the level of chaos and I'd say variability in your sales process. I find the same in mine.
Yeah.
When I know what I need to do next, where there's no uncertainty about how or when or why this is getting done, there's such a huge difference in the noisiness in my brain compared to when it's all just in the calendar and it's scheduled.
It makes you feel good in terms of just, you go into a week, you go into a month, you know exactly what you need to do. And it's editable as you go as well. So for example, if you're in your sales career and you need to do heavier prospecting to generate your sales funnel, then great, you can edit that and allow more time for that and take something out and move it in. If you're further along in your sales career and you're more just managing accounts, or you're an enterprise or something like that, you're only handling 2 accounts, or it's fully functional to wherever you need to go in your career.
I want to get into some of your habits, and maybe we've talked a little bit about your calendaring. How do you think about kind of managing your energy schedule?
Yeah, so it's funny. I do this without even knowing really I do it. Until we were talking about now, I basically get up at 5:30 in the morning. I don't work as much at night now, so between 5:45 when I first start sipping coffee until about 6:45 when my kids start getting up and I got to get them out the door to the school, I'm super productive. I'm getting so much done. I like to just get some of the most difficult things I need to do during the course of my day done then. So that way, when the whole world is starting to fire off emails and take your attention, your cell phone's ringing, your wife needs you, your mother needs you, like whatever, I know I have my most important or hardest to do stuff done at that point. Like basically by 7 a.m., I feel comfortable that like I've achieved my hardest things that day, and anything else at that point, I don't want to say it's gravy, but like I feel pretty good about my day at that point at 7 a.m. That's a great feeling to have. Yeah, I mean, it's just my energy. It's funny. Like I am really good between 5:45 and about 7 a.m. Get the kids out about 7:30, 7:45. I'm really good after working out and showering for about another 50 to 90 minutes. And then I get in the, holy crap, I'm hungry. Like I can only focus on other things. I have it on my schedule. I go eat my lunch. I take a quick walk around the block just to kind of decompress. I do anything other than work at that point. Listen to music, listen to a podcast, talk to a former colleague, something. I know when I get back at 12:30, 12:45, whatever that would be, I'm ready to go. I'm locked in until about 3:30 when my kids get home at that point. And then it's kind of, I'm more flexible from 3:30 onward.
Interesting. And I've experienced this. I think we did our first pre-interview at around 3:30 and it was flexible. There were kids coming and going, which is totally fine. Like we both work from home. I've had kids jumping in on the podcast occasionally, which I don't love doing because, you know, you're trying to stay in the pocket here. And you've got 2 little monkeys trying to jump on you, like thinking I'm a jungle gym.
Yeah, but to a degree, that's life, though. I mean, like right now, I know the lawn guys are starting outside my house right now, and it's life. There's nothing I can control about that. Like you make the best of the situation you're in, and you figure out how to move forward as best you possibly can in that situation. Your kids are sick from school. Your wife needs you to go to that. You got to go pick this up, whatever it may be. You're flexible in your life enough that you're not so regimented in exactly what your schedule says at that exact time.
I love that. One of the hardest parts of being a salesperson is that your schedule you can get to a point where your schedule is not yours. You're booking time where your prospect wants to meet at this particular time. And I know I get this way. I'm pretty structured with like Fridays, I write the book. Thursday mornings, I do the podcast. You know, I've got certain times when I'm picking the kids up or I'm taking the kids to school, and those times are not flexible. It's like, but other times it just like crunches. How do you balance that? Do you have times blocked? Do you have,
Well, I mean, going forward on the course of my weeks, I block out the most important things. I work out, I schedule my lunch, I schedule my LinkedIn for this day, I schedule my LinkedIn outreach, I schedule prospecting windows here, I schedule mass cadence writing here. So like, I have time reserved. I also put a 30-minute block in there every single day where I call it hold for focus, but that may change. Like maybe I budgeted roughly 30 minutes for proposal creation, but it's probably going to be 45 minutes. So I know I have an extra 30 minutes there if I need it. So I always have something there. As far as controlling my calendar, I allow prospects. So there's a couple different ways. I do the general Calendly link where I basically have time the client can book. And I always allow and say, hey, if this doesn't work, please give me some times that work for you, and we'll try to make it work. I also get very, very intense. I don't have as much external problems as I do internal problems usually at companies in terms of what that time looks. You get sucked into meetings a lot of times, and you're like, why am I here? The old funny thing of this email could have been a meeting, and you're like, why am I here during this? I'm very particular about if you and I are going to meet, and I don't exactly know what this strategy is about or what we're trying to get out of this meeting, I'll flat out ask you ahead of time, hey, Collin, like, what are we trying to accomplish from this meeting? And if one, you don't have it, or two, it's something that we can solve prior, great, let's do it there. Like, I don't need to, or the other thing I look at is, does this need to be done immediately? Is this something that we can focus on in 2 weeks from now when I see you again? Or can I call you on the way to my kid's practice? Like, do we have to budget 30 minutes during my prime hours for this?
I think you said something that reminded me of what a habit that's really been serving me. And I have a Google Doc running at all times, and I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but I like my Google Docs. I used to be a spiral bound kind of paper kind of guy, and I've transitioned to a freeform Google Doc. But I have a Google Doc, and I've got, the outline on the left, and with the major headings are the people that roll up to me. And anytime I think about slacking them, I first think, should I just talk to them about this next time I see them? And then I will throw that in. If it's I need an immediate reply, I'll send them a Slack. If I don't need an immediate reply, I just add it to their list of things I want to talk to them about. And then I can forget about it because I know at the beginning of our next one-on-one, I'm going to pull this up.
Yep. Totally agreed. Slack is a good and a bad portion of the workday. I mean, there are many conversations in previous jobs and this job where you get better with those impromptu conversations via Slack, whether it's on Slack video or just slacking back and forth. But like, you also, it's no different than scrolling TikTok or Instagram or Facebook at that time as well. So you do need to be cognizant of what are we trying to accomplish in this? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I want to double click on you said something interesting about every day after lunch for 30 minutes. You've got hold for focus. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about what you do in that 30 minutes.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically reserve that. And honest to God, most days I end up just skipping that and moving on with something else. But it's there. It's almost like a pull in case of emergency tab. I save that for things that didn't get done during the morning. Maybe I got called into something and I didn't go deep enough in my LinkedIn prospecting, or I was expecting this to be budgeted for an hour, but oh my goodness, it's way deeper than I thought. It's an hour and a half. So let me use that time for this. It's my kind of catch all for the morning time of, did I not complete something? And truthfully, as I said, most days I end up just skipping that, but it's there just in case.
Interesting. And so you've got this at your lunch break, just after lunch. I love that you schedule your lunch. That's something that I'm trying to do a better job of, because I look at my calendar, and I'm not going to pull it up now, but there were 3 days this week where I didn't have a block for lunch, and I ended up eating something crappy in between, a 5-minute slot of like something ended a bit early.
Well, I mean, to even go deeper into that, I notice I get hangry. Like if it's like 2:00 and I haven't eaten, I don't eat breakfast. So I haven't now eaten in probably 20 hours. I'm a hangry man at that point. So my prospects, my Carvertise employees, like no one's benefiting from me being that way. So I need to be very cognizant of that. And secondarily, like I think I enjoy lunchtime. I do not look at one email during lunch. I don't get like that's my time to decompress, just see what's going on, like what happened in the sports world last night, what's going on, and like whatever it is that entertains you. Do anything other than work at that point. I can promise you this: whatever email that comes in during that time, it'll be fine for 30 minutes. Promise you.
This was the hardest. I do this every day now, or at least when it's scheduled in and when I go and take lunch. But it was the hardest thing to get used to working from home. Was the permission not to be at my desk, permission to be on my couch and watching something, and I'll throw something on while I make lunch, and then I sit down and I've got a Google Home, and I'll say, hey, set a timer for 15 minutes to make sure that I'm kind of hitting my window. But that was hard. I still feel guilty taking time away from work during the day.
I think we all do, and like that still happens. And it's funny, like I go into the office like 1 or 2 days a week. But we're in the office at 5:15 or I'm in the office at 7 a.m., I feel guilty that I'm not at home, though, too. So it does go both ways.
I'm curious we've talked about how you start your day. We've talked about kind of what you do at Lynn, how you schedule your lunch in. Let's bookend it. How do you end your day every day?
Well, I mean, I think I'll look at this kind of two different ways. So like one, I end my working day, like we'll call it 5:30, whatever that is. A lot of times have things scheduled there where I can be more flexible. As I said, my kids typically walk in somewhere around 3:30, and there's nothing, dentist appointment, et cetera, but like usually around 3:30. I have things like updating my LinkedIn contact, my outreach there. I have things like reaching out to one of the things that I really wanted to get better at is I scheduled that starting in January this year was there were so many colleagues that I've met over the last 20 some years doing this that I just don't talk to and pick their brain and just have genuine conversation to them as much. So I've made really a purpose of reaching out to them via text, via phone call, via LinkedIn, something, via email. I do that. It doesn't matter if I do that at 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock. I'll take meetings during that time, a lot of internal ones, or even I handle the full U.S., so I'll take Pacific meetings then because it's still earlier in the day their time. And honestly, my kids are coming in. My daughter will be coloring on the floor. There's nothing that is super. I just want them near me and knowing, hey, Dad's here, he's working, but like I'm here hanging out with him during that time. Is honestly more important to me. But like I'm able to prospect or reply to an email during that time pretty flexibly. The secondary thing is after kids go to bed and the night is starting to kind of calm down, I'll put a ball game on the TV in my office, and what I try to do on a nightly basis is get done all the BS, because we all have it, that you have to deal with the next morning. Reply to emails that were not super urgent. Finish a revision of a proposal for a prospect or a client. Do all like paperwork I do during nighttime. So when I come in that next day, I'm like ready to go. And I do this Sunday night for Monday as well. Just so like I can come in and boom, be ready to go that next morning.
That's great. I think in the pre-interview you mentioned like prepping for your one-on-one, your updates, your ask, and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I forget who actually told me this, but I'd wanted to become more purposeful with my meetings. And I have a friend that sells enterprise SaaS. And he said something to me one time, and it was just like, it shocked me a little bit because I'd never even like thought of it. My one-on-ones in my history have more been manager kind of coming down and drilling down, like, where's your pipeline? Where are we at with this? Like this. I'm like, that's just what I knew one-on-ones to be like. When he told me, he's like, the one-on-ones are, and he was a manager of that company, he said, the one-on-ones are my reps' time to bring to me issues and roadblocks and strategy sessions. And I'm like, holy crap, I've been doing this wrong all this time. So now I come prepared for that. I have notes. I do a Google Doc with my manager, and I say, here's what's going on. Here's all your pipeline stuff. I have it. We can certainly dive deeper into this. But here's things that I need to cover. Immediately, as soon as I started doing that, it changed my one-on-ones. I go out of there with clear action items and clear plans and answering my questions. That also is a great kind of repository, as you said earlier, for all that Slack communication that could have been sent all week long. Hey, I was going to Slack you on Thursday, but I had a question about this. It wasn't super urgent. What do you think about that? Great time. The other thing that I'll do a lot of times is I will reach out to my manager kind of whenever it pops up and say, hey, during our one-on-one time this week, I'm struggling with this proposal or this idea, or I want to strategize this account or this prospect. Can we set aside some time for that? As a sales rep, that's your time that you need to reclaim. And I can promise you, the vast majority of managers are going to want you to get the most out of that time. They're just so conditioned to them drilling down on pipeline. That's standard. And obviously you still have to do that stuff, but if you can focus on something else, do it.
Totally. I mean, I think it comes down to so many sales managers don't have the time, or sales leaders don't have the time because they have too many direct reports. And the ideal, meetings would be a one-on-one, a separate one-on-one, a call scoring, call review kind of session, a separate forecast call, and then a weekly learning call. But there's 4 meetings right there that could be 2 to 4 to 5 hours for a rep.
20 reps, your week's over. Yeah.
You're underwater. That's, let's not make me do math here, but that's more hours than you probably want to work. Yeah. This is a sales podcast, all right? Keep it clean. You can swear, but there's no math here.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. And so I love that you're doing this to kind of prep to make sure you get the most out of these. And as somebody I have one-on-ones, I have done one-on-ones with other people. The people that come the most prepared are definitely getting the highest ROI out of their time.
Well, and I've seen too, we have budgeted an hour for my one-on-one, 45 minutes. Most times if I come prepared and boom, 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 here's my pipeline, I'm out of there in 35 minutes usually too. So if you come prepared for really any meeting, you're going to be so much better off. I mean, it's the same thing as with your client-facing meetings. If you go into that meeting prepared and not asking what is your strategy for the next 6 months? How are you currently handling it? If you come and say, I know you're doing this, I know you're doing this, is this still the case? That meeting takes an entirely different turn at that point.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I want to pull out of the kind of daily schedule and kind of look at your weeks now. Sure. I know there are some specific column themes that you do every day. Can we talk about what are some of these things that you do on I say weekly basis?
In terms of outside, during a week, I have my team one-on-one or my team meeting. So that's every Monday morning. I have that. I have my one-on-one prep is hard slotted every Thursday morning. My one-on-one is hard slotted for every Thursday afternoon. And then I have working out, lunch, my focus time, and kind of that 3:30 to 5 p.m. time every day is kind of mostly that's my hard slots.
Yeah.
The other ones that I do on Friday afternoons, look, I'm no different than any other sales rep at that point. I don't want to be doing deep, hard work on a Friday, especially in the summer. I will schedule things like I still am a big, big believer in writing note cards to prospects, something very easy I can do. It's not a heavy lift. I write them a note card. Hey, we appreciate your business. If I can ever help you again, or been trying to get your attention, blah, blah, whatever it looks like. I'll do that on Friday afternoons. I do my lost connection or former connection reach outs. And then honestly, a lot of times we have our second half of the year sales kickoff coming in early or mid-June. I have to be over the next week in a bunch of strategy sessions for that with my other national workers, and then with other team members where we're figuring out what we're presenting, we're preparing presentations for that. So I'll sit down probably tomorrow morning or Saturday or Sunday, whatever that may be, and start blocking off those times where either I can do it by myself or I need someone to be there with me, where I can be pretty focused on exactly what I'm doing during that time frame. I don't like going into a week knowing of, hey, I need to catch up with you at some point this week. Just book it and get it done with. If it needs to move, it needs to move, but at least you have it booked for now.
Totally. So you've got your Friday afternoons. I love that you've got the throw a ball game on or something that's a little bit more casual. Write your handwritten note cards, which I think every salesperson knows is a great thing to do, but I don't know too many people that actually do that on a regular basis. And that's amazing. What are some of the other kind of theme days? Like, what do you do Thursdays and like Thursday afternoons?
Yeah, so Thursday mornings and Thursday afternoons are mostly regarded for my one-on-one time because my boss goes into his kind of forecasting meeting on Friday morning. So he needs everything wrapped up by Thursday so he can be prepared for Friday. Great, got it. Wednesday, I do most of my LinkedIn outreach. I do both more of my prospecting there in the morning. Like I think it's 9:30 to 10:30 or 10 to 11 on Wednesday mornings. I have scheduled an hour to do LinkedIn prospecting. And usually what that entails is me going on, I'll do a hashtag search on LinkedIn. I'll do check in on various different topics, or I'll scroll LinkedIn for a while and see if there's content and just get in front of a prospect, comment on a prospect's messaging. LinkedIn is such a good tool, especially Sales Navigator, to be able to really organize yourself and your prospects there. So like you're not getting fluff on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You're basically getting what your clients care about. A lot of times what I'll do is if they're mentioned in an article or if they were on a podcast or they're on a TV show or something like that, I'll grab that and not use that unless sometimes I'll use it right away. But I'll send that. We use SalesLoft, so I'll kind of keep that in the repository under the notes under that person's tab. When I'm reaching out to them the next, I'll be like, hey, by the way, I saw you on Collin's podcast. I'll forget about that or won't want to go back and find it by the time I'm reaching out to them next time. So I use that as kind of a block there to really go deep into LinkedIn. I do a big part of my business and has been for a while is cold outreach. I have found that if I don't go deeper into driving and building lists and finding those prospects, it just kind of is one of those projects that just keeps getting pushed off. So I will really schedule on Tuesday afternoons a really deep prospecting session. It's usually 90 minutes where I'm grabbing anyone that fits the criteria, throwing them on a list, setting up that cadence of the next 90 days of the emails they're getting. The other one that I do, and I typically do this on Tuesday mornings, is I go and look at my current clients. I go look at former clients, their LinkedIns. Most people allow you to see their other connections. I'll go deep and search their connections. I'll reach out to them and say, hey, I didn't know you were connected with this person. Is it someone you potentially could make an introduction to? That always works really well. I mean, if it's someone you've done well by in the past, they're very open to say, yep, I know that person pretty well. Shoot me a note, or, hey, tell me what you want me to say to them. Or, nope, I don't really know them that well. I can't help you there. Sorry. And nothing else, it keeps me fresh with that former client, former prospect or something. But at best, it's potentially a new lead and a new deal for me.
Totally. This sounds like I'm picturing this as a younger salesperson or a founder who's coming from, product engineering and getting into sales. It sounds like an overwhelming amount of things that you do. And I imagine to anybody to try and add all of these habits, all of these blocks, and get good at all of them all at once. The shotgun approach probably not going to be not going to work.
I'm always a big believer in it, and it's funny. I listen to your podcast almost every episode, and I try to grab one listener. I try to grab one or two actionable items from each of these people. It's impossible to be able to take Josh Braun was fantastic. Let me take everything he's doing and just put it in my life. Or this person was great. Let me do all of that. But if you can say, hey, that's relevant to my world, that's relevant to my world. I can't do that, but I can do a version of this, do that. And like, success is just simple habits that stack themselves over time. I mean, whatever is important to this success of your individual bit, I don't care what it is. If cold calling is important, block a cold call time there. And I used to do a lot of cold calling. In fact, as I said, I was on your podcast in the past doing cold calling. It's not as relevant to my role right now, so I don't do it as much. So it changes. Like, just do yourself a favor, block out one or two things for the remainder of 2024, revisit it on a quarterly or annual basis, and just say, great, I got these solved. What else can I add?
I love it. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your habits, opening up your calendar to us. I'm going to try and put together like a little visual so people can get a representation of what a week, what a great week looks like. If you could only pick two habits to survive, say you look at your calendar, daily or weekly, you can only pick two habits. What are they?
I would tell you. So the first one I think is the most important is that after lunch hold for focus. That catch-all, I can tell you, twice a week at least, that comes through clutch for me, because what ends up happening if you don't have that is the day just gets away from you because everything gets backed up. Next thing you're in back-to-back meetings. The second thing, it's not so much like a focus as more of a takeaway. Just be so laser strategically focused with your meetings. What am I trying to accomplish? Even if you're not the one setting the meeting, what is Collin trying to schedule? Well, what is the goal of this meeting? I do not go into meetings if I don't know what the goal coming out of that is. You'd be surprised how many meetings actually could turn into emails, and they're just scheduling because they think that's the easiest thing to do. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I like whatever's important to you. If it's working out, if it's praying, like whatever it is, I would block that.
Love it. I want to ask, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all the habits. Tell me a little bit about what it is you do at Carvertise, and if people are interested, learn a little bit more. How can
that'd be fantastic. Yeah, always. I mean, always will accept new clients. We are wide open for new clients. So the company I work with, Carvertise, I've been here a year now. We take high mileage Uber and Lyft cars, rideshare cars. We wrap them with clients' ad messaging. It's essentially a modern version of a billboard. But that's really where the fun begins. We're all across North America for now, but we are expanding. And we take these cars that are wrapped, your fleet of cars, we call them, and we can focus on the cities and states and the zip codes that you're trying to penetrate with your messaging. We bring them. Basically, the cool thing is we can almost pick up your billboard on the side of the highway, bring it to large-scale sporting events, bring it to concerts, bring it to that. And the cool thing that we added this year is we have the ability to demo target now. So you wouldn't think you can demo target with Uber and Lyft, but we got a way to do it. So please reach out. If you got business, I will love to put you in my calendar. So
when I first saw your email, I was like, okay, how... Yeah. Do you have like a list of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers that have signed up? Do you have agreements with Uber and Lyft? Like, I'm just curious how.
No, we do have partnerships with rideshare companies and delivery apps and places like that. But our network, we have about 800,000 Uber and Lyft drivers in the U.S. and Canada that are willing to wrap their car. We pay them a monthly fee, and then we also pay them to be at events or wherever they'd be scheduled to be there. So everyone kind of wins in this regard. So, and it's funny, Uber and Lyft, kind of from what I hear, really like us too, because if their drivers are getting paid more, they're going to stay being drivers. So kind of everyone wins here.
You pay them to wrap their car, and then when there's a big event, you'll pay them to go and just sit out front with the advertisement there?
Correct. Yeah.
That's amazing.
We own zero inventory, no plan to own inventory. It's the modern gig economy.
My gosh, I always like to give people a chance to like share a little bit what they do a little ad at the end. But this one, I was just like, I gotta ask. I'm curious. This sounds like an awesome business.
It's fun. Yeah, it's. Now I will tell you the hard part is no one goes into an annual planning and says, here's my Uber ad wrapping budget. I mean, my job is to convince people to take money to ad plan for somewhere else to put it on the side of an Uber. So yeah, there's good and bad. But yeah, I love it. It's fun.
Right on. If people are interested in wrapping their cars or just want to learn a little bit more from Kevin, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, and please, I mean, we're always looking for high quality talent. So if there's, if I'm not hiring it, I can absolutely connect you to someone. So please, if you have interest in that, find me. Kevin Gilman on LinkedIn, Gilman, Gilman at Carvertise.com. And yeah, please reach out. LinkedIn's going to be the easiest way. Shoot me a note, even if you just want to pick my brain about scheduling or cold calling or anything else, sales, always willing to help.
Right on. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Again.
It was great seeing you again.
It's good to see you too. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll see you all next week.